Hey guys, I'm Yvette from Yvette K Studios, and today we're going to be making this DIY doormat that says "That's what she shed." So we're gonna start off in Cricut Design Space, and I created this file that I've already uploaded. We're gonna add this to Canvas, and as you can see, it's quite small. You want to make sure that everything is selected, and you go down here to combine and weld everything together. Then we are going to resize this. So I'm going to resize the width to 23.5. And you're going to want to use your bigger Cricut mat for this. So I decided after resizing that I didn't really like how skinny it was, so I changed the height and I unlocked it so that I can change the height individually, and I made it for, originally it was 12.5, but it wouldn't cut it at 12.5, so I resized it to 11.5. So it's going to tell you that, of course, it is bigger than what it can cut, but the mat is about 24 inches, so everything is fine. And what you want to do is place a long sheet of permanent vinyl and make sure to cut it down to that 24 inches. And I just used a regular white permanent vinyl, and so I'm using premium vinyl, and I've selected to have it cut. And as it prepares, it's going to make sure to detect my mat and the blade. I don't know why this part takes forever sometimes for Cricut to do, but it finally started cutting. So after it's done cutting, I just kind of leave my vinyl on the mat. It makes it a little easier to handle. And I taped my vinyl onto the mat because this mat is kind of old and I haven't gotten a chance to wash it. So I'm weeding out the actual letters, and you want to make sure to leave that negative space in there. Don't weed out that middle part. So you see that little part in the E and then the H and all of those that have that part in the middle where it's a negative space. You want to make sure that you don't accidentally weed that out, because that's going to make it look weird. And you just want to go and weed all the letters out, because again, we're going to use this as our stencil. And I'm just being really careful here, making sure that I get every piece. So now I'm going to put my transfer paper on, and for my transfer paper, I'm just using, I think this is a shelf liner from Dollar Tree. You don't want to use anything that's too sticky, because if you use something that's too sticky, it's not going to come off of your transfer paper. You want to make sure that it does, because it doesn't stick very well on the mat itself. Okay, so here I am putting on the transfer paper. I do apologize that this whole thing is basically out of frame. Once my transfer paper is on, I just use the back of my scissors to kind of press it on there. And you really want to focus on those middle tiny negative space pieces that we talked about earlier, because you want to make sure that those stick to your transfer paper and that they transfer all together. So I'm not really focused too much on how much it sticks to the transfer paper, because I think I'll be able to just get it off of the transfer paper. So this is where I start removing the vinyl backing off of the transfer paper. I am struggling just a little bit to find the corner of that transfer paper. So this part is not the hard part. You do have to kind of be mindful that your hand is going to get stuck on that vinyl. Mine did multiple times. And then see how those little middle pieces are not wanting to come off. You just want to make sure that you don't miss any of them. I think I missed that little one on the E right there. And then you just want to carefully peel that backing off like you would do with any vinyl. Of course, working with a bigger section, there's always challenges. You want to make sure that it doesn't stick to your clothes or anything like that. So once everything is on my transfer paper, I'm flipping it over and placing it where I want on my mat. I want to make sure that it's straight. And you want to make sure that both sides are even. Some people measure it. I just kind of eyeball everything. This is for me. If you're going to make these to sell, I do suggest that you measure it to make sure everything is in the middle. There will be a little bit of adjusting as you start peeling off that transfer paper. But as of right now, just place it kind of where you think it will look good. And I kind of lift it a little bit so I can see a little better and make sure that everything is straight. Honestly, this part was so annoying to try to get that transfer paper off because my hand kept sticking to it and then it kept pulling the pieces up. The vinyl doesn't stick to the matte material really good like it would a tumbler or like any solid material, so it kind of sits on top and you want to be careful to not move the entire thing. I did pretty okay. This transfer paper, because it's like shelf liner, is not very sticky, and so I think this might have been my best option. I can't imagine doing this with Cricut transfer paper or anything like that. Again, this was cheap and we're going kind of big here, so I don't feel bad about wasting this large sheet of transfer paper. I'm probably going to end up reusing this for my tumbler transfers. And you see how I'm struggling with those little pieces. Like, this was really annoying to do. Make sure that you have patience, because if you just go and you rip everything off, it's going to move where you put that stencil and you're gonna have to start all over. It's a whole thing. And this took me, I don't know, about 10 minutes, maybe a little less, to remove everything. When it gets to the edges, it's really annoying. The middle part is not as annoying because it kind of sticks a little bit better. But we're almost done here, so I can finally breathe again. And then there will be some adjustments. So I do adjust this a little bit. As you can see on that edge right there, it's not very flat. And then you have to adjust and make sure that everything is flat on here. So again, because this doesn't stick too well to the material, you can just lift it up and put it where it's supposed to go if it did lift a little bit while you were removing that transfer paper. So after I flattened the stencil, I'm using a really thick painter's tape just to cover the rest of the mat. We're going to be spray painting it, and if you've ever worked with spray paint, you know that there is a lot of overflow and it's going to kind of ruin your mat if you don't cover it up. So I just want to make sure that I am kind of lining up and covering the rest of those edges. So you can actually cover the mat with any type of leftover vinyl. You just want to make sure that the whole thing is covered. So then I went ahead and brought it outside, and I'm just using a regular black spray paint. It's not anything special. This is Rust-Oleum, and you want to spray it directly from above. That's the most important part. And as you can see here, I'm just doing short spritz of spray. I'm not doing a continuous long spray. It's very short bursts. You want to make sure that all of that paint gets deep into the mat and everything is colored, not just the surface. Again, you want to make sure the most important thing is that you're using the stencil for its intended purpose. You don't want to spray it from the side because if you spray it at an angle, it might spray underneath the stencil. So I had to remove my stencil piece pretty quickly because it was windy. And here I am just removing the middle pieces that is still wet. I am impatient. You can wait until it dries. I don't think it makes a difference, but I was too excited to see the results of this. So I went ahead and removed everything while it was still wet. You do want to be careful and possibly wear gloves, but I like to use my fingernails to help me whenever I'm removing stencils. So here is the finished product, and I hope you like it.